Thank you for watching this. This is Ed Fletcher, and we are in Sacramento, California, the corner of 9th and P, where this Say Her Name protest for Breonna Taylor is heading towards the Capitol and then on to Cesar Chavez. This little dog is even into the act. I would give this crowd easily 1,500. It is, again, heading down towards the Capitol. And you can see it winding around with this tail end here. I'm going to jump in the crowd here and follow along. And today we'll be talking a little bit about criminal justice. So here we go. If you're new to following me, this is Ed Fletcher. I'm a longtime reporter in town. I worked for the Sacramento Bee for 17 years, and I've been doing documentaries since then, and decided to jump into action as this protest started bubbling up, first in Minneapolis, and now, of course, in Sacramento and across the country. Sacramento has been no stranger to protest, punctuated in large part after the Joseph Mann killing and then the Stephon Clark shooting energized this community, and it really brought the Black Lives Matter protest to Sacramento. That protest really sprouted the leaders and a lot of the energy behind what we're seeing now, but this has grown and mushroomed into a much more multicultural movement than what you saw during Stephon Clark. Here we are on R Street. You can see the light rail train headed this way. You can still see a lot of the businesses in downtown Sacramento, and a lot of buildings are still boarded up. There were 2 days of violent protests in Sacramento that included some looting and a lot of windows broken and a fair amount of vandalism. That has calmed down significantly since that time. Things have calmed down significantly since that time, and there's been a law enforcement de-escalation of sorts since then, but that has not been entirely ideal all of the time. We are now winding towards the California Capitol building here in downtown Sacramento.
Now! Justice! Now! Justice! Now!
One thing I do want to mention is these barricades here. They were first put into use for these protests here in Sacramento, and has on some of the larger days protected the protesters from vehicle attacks, which we saw in other cities in response to the protests. By and large, the anti-protests have been somewhat small compared to other cities, but you have seen a few of them here and there, but for the most part, they have not initiated, or that hasn't turned into a fight. All right, so they're going to hang here, right here in front of the Capitol. If you're, again, new to this, here is the California Capitol building behind us. We are approaching what they call the West Steps. is the west steps of the Capitol. During normal times, you could schedule a permit and have a official protest on the Capitol, and Sacramento sees protests almost every day that the Capitol is functioning on multiple sides of the Capitol. There's no permit, and there's this steel fence here preventing people from approaching the Capitol. But unlike last week, there is not a heavy security presence at the fence. Last week there were guards all the way right up here along this wall here, and there's probably 300 or 400 of them standing around all day long. Nowadays you can see there's a couple of them back up here. Oh, sorry.
Police! 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 Shut it down!
You might be able to see them there. I can see them with my naked eye, harder to see with the camera, but there's the 3 cops over there. I think they're probably on horseback, and then you've got some horseback guys over here waiting out, and I'm sure if they radioed, there'd be a ton of CHP here. One of the things that the protests accomplish by bringing up all of the different names is to kind of help people understand the breadth and width of the problem. That this isn't about George Floyd, it's about Trayvon Martin, it's about Breonna Taylor, it's about Philando Castile, it's about all of these instances that add up to a system of justice that people feel don't see justice for black and brown people. So appreciate you sharing this. Please share this feed with other people and give me some hearts and likes. That helps more people see the feed. But I wanted to go through some of these names here and see how many you know. We've all heard the names George Floyd, Philando Castile, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Laquan McDonald, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, all the way back to Emmett Till. And each of these cases are ones that deserve examination. And if you've been following the news lately, the name Raymond comes to mind. Raymond, I forget his last name, but the gentleman in Atlanta that was killed. And if you look at the facts of that case, you have to wonder, were the right tools in place to see citizens go home safe? And should a law enforcement officer have intervened, or should they have used different tools to intervene in that situation?
Peaceful protest! 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 Peaceful protest!
One of the things you'll see about this crowd is how multicultural it is. And in the last couple days, there's been Black Lives Matter protests in North Highlands and in Rockland, and I'm sure other places as well that I didn't know about. And in this case, and in many of those cases, it is mostly young and a very diverse and multicultural group. And this is why this movement reminds me much more of the gay marriage fight than any civil rights battle which I have ever seen. When you have young people and the youth of America. I think you have the center of America, and I think you're seeing this group demand justice, and the timing has a lot to do with it. Seeing the George Floyd case coming on top of all that we've been through. And then the occupant of the White House has helped amplify the situation. The pandemic has created the situation where these young people don't have anywhere else to be other than here. So it's created the perfect opportunity in a way to press this issue that needed to have been pressed for a long time. And unlike other movements, we're seeing rapid movement by the government to try to meet some of the demands, from banning chokeholds to examining other kind of use of force situations. We're seeing legislation or movement at the local, state, and national level, and I think that's unprecedented in my lifetime. So this group is occupying the bike lane, and unlike some other instances of the protest, they don't seem to be occupied with or consumed with blocking traffic, which is something that they have done in the past. This is more of a yell at the building and build solidarity through spirit action here. But then again, there's not much traffic anyway to block.
You can't stop the revolution.
All right, we're going to conserve battery and shut it down for now. We will jump back on at a future date if and when we need to. Thanks for checking this out.